Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Daniel.
In this episode, we're going to talk about money. Money is a very important subject because it's the foundation for all other life skills.
Starting out as a young adult, your expenses will be very large in proportion to your income, so it's necessary to spend your money wisely. Even as you get older, your expenses and purchase amounts will tend to go up, so smart financial decisions will always be important.
In order to make good financial decisions, you need a budget. A budget is any way that you effectively track your income and your spending, with labels to divide up your money into necessary spending categories: taxes, insurance, and savings.
The necessary spending categories include food, both grocery and dining out, clothing and disposables, utilities, and equipment and furnishings.
For food, the average amount of money you spend a month should be about $300. This amount will obviously go up if you are married and have kids, but you can also spend less than this if you eat really frugally.
Clothing and disposables are things that you will need to purchase again after they wear out. These things include toilet paper, soap, paper, socks, printer ink, etc.
Utilities include electricity, gas, water, internet, phone service, recycle, and garbage. The average cost of utilities per month is about $400.
Equipment and furnishings are mostly one-time purchases. These generally include furniture, kitchen appliances, and anything else that won't normally be used up or replaced. The cost of these depends on what you can afford and already have, but you should still take them into account when thinking about moving out to live on your own.
Taxes are a hassle. Different taxes that affect most people are the federal income tax, the state income tax, and the property tax. These taxes are entirely dependent on your income, location, and property. Overall, you can expect taxes to take around 25% of your income.
Insurance is important because it can cover the cost of accidents and mistakes that you wouldn't normally be able to save up for. The cost of insurance depends on which specific company and insurance plan you use and how many types of insurance you pay for.
Savings are the most overlooked part of the budget, but they are just as important as everything else. While it is very tempting to spend your leftover $50 on a new game or other fun thing, it is more beneficial to limit how much you spend on fun things and pocket the rest of your money for the future. Often, there are unexpected expenses you may have to pay for, or you realize that you want to get a better house, but you don't have the sufficient savings to cover it. Saving is a necessary part of a well-planned budget.
Okay, it's time to move on to our interviews with adults and their experience with money.
What stage of life were you in when you first started keeping a budget consistently?
I think I was in high school when I first started getting a regular income and having to, balance my checkbook and pay attention to what kinds of things, if I needed to save up for something or save up for, then in college, save up for textbooks, school books. Man, those are expensive. So I think probably high school when I first started budgeting and saving and thinking about where my money went.
So budgeting for me has always been pretty ingrained into me. Growing up, I always had an allowance coming in. I always had, of course, that next thing I wanted to buy. And so just as a natural result at an early age, I always had set budget of this is how much I can spend on different things, with always making room in that budget to for just being generous. But as an adult, setting my budget was right off the get-go. Before I ever moved out, I had already established a budget. Like say, my wife and I talked quite a deal about what our budget looked like, and we were basing it at the time off of 2 McDonald's wages, with the plan that she would become a stay-at-home mom at some point.
My parents encouraged me to keep a budget early. So when I started mowing lawns, just for money, like a lot of kids do, those kind of yard jobs, I started keeping a budget. It was a little booklet that you opened up. It had an envelope for cash, and you marked it out. So I started doing that consistently then, and pretty much have not ever stopped keeping a fairly consistent, up-to-date budget.
Do you keep a budget now?
We do, although it's had to be very flexible throughout the years. With each kiddo that comes along, it changes. With each life stage, it changes. But yes.
Well, I absolutely keep a budget now. If I didn't, that would just add more stress and anxiety to family life than I care to think about.
Why or why not?
I think it just helps you stay on track. It's amazing how money can disappear if you're not kind of watching it and being careful about keeping an eye on where it's going.
Did you have any struggles when you were first responsible for your own clothing, transportation, and shelter? Do you care to share?
Not a lot of struggles. I worked, and so I had money, and I spent my money, and it was good. I think just again, kind of realizing how much life costs out on your own was more than I expected, but not shocking. So,
I'd say I didn't really struggle so much with my transportation or my home. Like I say, my wife and I are both savers, so we really planned and set aside funds for those things. Clothing, on the other hand, is not something that is high on either of my priority lists. My wife shops like a guy my wife shops like a guy to my benefit, where she's not like a lot of other gals that like to spend a lot of time going to the mall and looking at all the different clothes. So for us, it's not so much that affording clothes is a problem. It's more the motivation to go out and get what we actually need.
I think it was almost a little easier then. I think about, the cost of gas. It's 97 cents a gallon. So I had that little Dodge Neon, and I knew that if I had $10, I could fill up the tank, and that tank would last me a long time. And I think, seems like cost of food, cost of housing, cost of everything, cost of tuition, everything has gone up so dramatically that I think it was probably a little bit easier then to just work hard, get after it, and then be able to support yourself.
How can a young adult avoid those problems?
Be born rich, 1. 2, marry a rich woman. That's another option. Just work hard and be frugal with your money and budget. If you know how much money you're going to have, like if you're getting a paycheck, don't spend beyond your means. And it actually is not impossible to do. And work side jobs.
Planning ahead is always good. Having a budget is always a good idea. Sharing what you can share. If you can share, if you can rent with a friend or two, if you can buy things that are used. I tried rarely to pay full price for textbooks because you'll use it that semester. You may never use it again. Even though you'll think that you'll use it again, you'll end up with a bookshelf full of books that you maybe rarely reference. So I always would try to get them used if I could.
What are the 2 or 3 largest categories of your budget right now?
Largest areas of our budget right now, of course, housing. That's always going to be probably the largest item on your budget. But groceries, as your family grows, so does that portion of your budget. So you always want to make sure that you are planning that ahead of time.
Again, so food and just life stuff, soap, shampoo, toiletries, that kind of stuff is probably one of the biggest portions of our budget. Again, because I have 6 kids. But insurance is a big one when you start. House insurance, car insurance, kids on your insurance. That's another big chunk And then, of course, mortgage is always a chunk.
Definitely mortgage and food.
What do you do to save for unexpected expenses?
My wife and I have always been big savers, so when we have an unexpected expense, we just tend to always keep a number of months worth of wages in the bank, and we don't go below a certain level. We will have big expenses, whether it's a vehicle or a trip, but we always make sure that we preserve our emergency funds.
We set aside savings. We have an emergency account that we just plunk money into as it comes. We don't always save, always. But anytime there's extra, we put that aside. Try to purposefully put that aside. And then at my job, I have a retirement plan that's putting money aside for long-term retirement.
Yeah, it's a good plan to save for unexpected expenses because they come up. Flat tire, pipe bursts, all kinds of things. One of the things that's been nice for us in the past number of years in our adult lives, my husband and I, we always get an income return back to us. So that is sort of, we know that that's coming. So that's kind of nice that we can allocate and set that aside for when there are things like, oh, the fridge just went out or what have you. We do save every month as well. That's, I guess, the most important part is making sure you're spending less than you're making. We don't use credit cards that we can't pay off, things that, so we try not to get ourselves into that debt. And then when we have things that we know, extra income that comes in or income tax returns, things like that, then we'll set those aside and put those into savings so that when something comes up, as it inevitably does, then we can cover it.
What's the most important thing a teen should start doing money-wise when they get their first job?
So when you guys are starting out with your first job and you start getting those paychecks, of course, when you're living at home, you don't have a lot of financial responsibility. The tendency is to say, hey, I can do all the things with this that I've always wanted to do but never had the money to do. I think that that's good, and it's a fun time in your life where you should go and do some of those things, but take at least half of what you make and put that straight into savings. Don't even look at it. And out of that other half, take care of your responsibilities, be generous, and then take the rest for yourself. But one thing I'll add to that is if you are like me and you get married early, and this depends on what you and your spouse's plans are, is if she's going to be a stay-at-home mom, plan everything right off the bat off of just what you make, off of one income. My wife and I did that. And so immediately, even though I was paying for college and still in college, we had my income to live on and hers went straight to savings. That did so much for us in enabling us to get a home way before any of my peers. It saves us money in the long run because we've got a bigger down payment, and we don't have as many years to pay on the house, and inflation sucks.
When you get your first job, I would, again, best money advice for a first job, first paycheck would be to budget. Some jobs, if you know you're working 20 hours a week and you know you're making $15 an hour, after taxes, you'll know what that's going to be. Start making a budget. And if you don't have a lot of expenses, you could have a lot of fun money. But if you know how much money you have, you know how much you can spend, and how much you can save. So just pay attention, I guess.
Pay attention. Balance that checkbook. Look what you're spending and think, okay, do I do I want to stay at this current level of spending, or am I going to need to be able to spend more in the future for things like college textbooks, rents, unexpected things that come up, first car, all of those kinds of things.
If you want to learn more about how to manage your money, we highly recommend books and courses by Dave Ramsey. The link is in the description below.
If you like this video or you think it was helpful, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. Next week, the last episode of this series that we plan to make comes out, so make sure you don't miss it. Also, if there's something you think we missed or should have done differently, or you have an idea for another topic that you think we should do in the future, then please leave a comment down below. This is Bros for Life Skills. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.